Toyota cannot change as much as they'd like to. Right? When they wanted to do luxury cars, they had to build other brands to do it with because the core brands wouldn't capture it. So you had to get Lexus, you had to get Acura, you had to get Infiniti. Lexus still works. When was the last time you heard of a conversation appreciating what Infiniti and Acura are up to?
Not in India also. So.
वो तो हो ही नहीं सकता ना. We haven't even figured out Honda yet. Acura आने का सवाल कहाँ से पैदा हुआ? Nissan has so far just started selling the Magnite. I don't know where the rest of their cars are. Where's the question of Infiniti coming? Right? Hyundai is here. Hyundai is successful, but where's the question of what? Genesis. What is it called? Equus. What? They're big cars.
Genesis.
Where is the question of that yet? Maruti hasn't figured out how to sell you a 60 lakh rupee car yet. So these are conversations that will happen later. But I'm saying at a very core level, Japan can't change. It's not what they do well. They execute the same idea multiple times very well. And think about what they're doing well, hybrids. When did they start working on hybrids? When did the world start working on hybrids?
Yeah.
They started very early. And they're very, very methodically working on creating very, very solid hybrid systems. It's a slow process.
Right.
You remember early in the motorcycle days when the Pulsar had come out and they figured out, I think, that the Unicorn would come with spoked wheels. Bajaj was able to shift to alloy wheels overnight.
Yeah.
And it completely wrong-footed the Unicorn, which wasn't a great quality bike at that stage because the taillights were falling off, which Honda had to fix later and all of that, right?
Correct.
During that mess, I asked somebody at Honda, saying, why don't you just do alloy wheels? Shumi-san, it's going to take us 18 months.
Right.
Why? Because process.
Right.
What process? First, I have to tell them that this is a problem. Then somebody has to agree that this is a problem. Then they have to say, okay, what do we need? Then I have to say we need alloy wheels. Then somebody says this is the right solution. Then we have to source a bunch of alloy wheels. Then they have to figure out which 3-4 might actually be production candidates. Then they have to be tested. Then it has to be said, okay, this is the one. Then it has to be validated. By the time I finish this process, 2 years from now. In those 2 years, Bajaj changed 2 generations of that Pulsar. How are they going to compete? So if you think about what we've seen of the Japanese, and we've worked with the Japanese for 20 years now, right? As journalists, we've met them, we've gone to their country, we've met a succession of CEOs, none of whom I can remember because apart from Ishikawa-san at Yamaha, I think nobody made an impression. And honestly, as disrespectful as it sounds, it's true. The Japanese CEOs to me are interchangeable because they never say anything. Okay, I don't know how many meetings I've refused at this point because what's the point of meeting them? Because they're going to say the same thing. They're going to say India is an awesome country. They're going to say India is a diverse country. We are working out what the Indian enthusiast wants, and soon you will see a change, which we never actually see. And by then they're gone, right? Somebody else is gone.
I'm going to use this to provide you a flip side, right? And for me, I look at it as genius because they've used a disadvantage to their advantage, right? So it's like typical press conference. You're sitting with a whole bunch of Japanese senior management members in front of you. And you've been told they don't speak English, right? So you ask a question and you take your time to ask the question. You asked your question. There's a translator who will then absorb, make notes of that, then translate it into Japanese to the management or to whoever you've addressed it to. That person will think over it, then answer the question in Japanese, and then it will be translated back to you in English. I found it genius. Because instead of saying, hey, I don't know English and being awkward about it, they've set up a wall. They've created an opportunity to give themselves time to answer the question. I thought it was genius.
At the end of which the answer never actually comes. Have you noticed that though?
That's the other beauty
right?
of
There was an actual press conference where the person who asked the question took almost, I'm going to say 7 or 8 minutes to ask the question because he referenced a number of years and sales data and blah, blah, blah. Then that question was asked. Then the poor interpreter, who is an Indian person.
Can I do it?
Who is an Indian person. I don't know how good Japanese they speak and how much time they took to put together the question that was actually asked. Then the top management of whatever organization this was conferred for a long time. There was lots of kusur-pusur on the stage. Then the committee decided that this would be the right answer to say. So the CEO then transferred this answer to the interpreter, which also took time. At this point, we are 10, 12, 14 minutes into the answering of this question. And then the interpreter also reconfirms that he's got the right version and what he's going to say is what is supposed to be said, blah, 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 20 minutes in. And then the guy says, maybe.
Okay, this is a slight exaggeration maybe in terms of the time
Okay,
taken.
he didn't say maybe. He says, yeah, so it could be exactly as you said, or it could go some other way, but we have to work it out and we'll see.
But we have had instances where the answer comes down to like 1 or 2 words. In the future, we will see. stuff like that.
That is 99% of all the answers you'll ever see. Okay, and I'm saying, what are these walls for?
Yeah.
And what are you protecting yourself against?
So I think that is today the challenge, because these walls are clearly getting in the way now, because
They're killing them. What?
they are
Getting in their
not
way.
being able to see beyond who they are or were rather in the past,
Yeah.
what they stood for in the past. Shumi is always like that. He's always kidding around and also dead serious. There's a lot more of that style of conversation on the main MotorInc channel, so head out and catch the full conversation.